and which as much as my science. And that's talking about digital and one and which suffices the us space and why before you have to select to make uses. No, it's you really need someone like you know so that will be also not saying that usually this information has you see. It comes from us in business because it allows me because I ish and I will start and I need to fix that up and then sit there Nigeria. You don't bring them. Simple step. Which is yes, so make sure they walk me in the cross one. So they are coming and it's well, as St. Mary's, they don't just think that we do our ourselves. Please look at the question and then use it to generalize and then inspire us and then we're happy because it does not reflect the general mood that all across you. I don't need to understand what I mean. And so it's very good to have that. So I won't go through all of this because what is the customs and requirements and the culture that comes about here. But like this, the new years here, 23, standard 23 talks about things. Still very different. Almost speak about represents and laborers. No, one word. Less like this. All right. Not very because the one to be next year. Just have in March this year, and it should be very for July 1st this year. And in July of 2026, so that we are said, like I'm to be all of this turn around my best. Let's see. It's to find out what I used to be having most of my wish. But it's not really for this, because the same thing that not be more than to right here and more. We start happens and we mentioned about many of the things to me as or I see now this the dream to talk about that. We just mentioned that it's next measure just about the legal strengthening of one of us so that we like doesn't be sorry. So I did that. All right, you want to ignore context reading and assess how prominent how prominent that is when we look at it, that means first and it's different from the model changing period or changing 25. And of course now on that is 1.3, 1.2, wow, this was also saying this. So it's like you really fit into that source. Okay, because basically if you saw poor very poor here, you need to sustain temporarily. Even if you score medium or you score very high. So spaces we must focus on as we prepare for 2026. So the life and future type of God using foreign model and then just suppose the new model and see what we have been installed in the 2025 model in 2023. Starting out of many appliance to a revelation in 2026. It's unbelievable. Okay. Each score and become obsessed about this. Alright. The nomenclature are becoming very poor. The great figures and years that you have to in another appreciation for that figure, which scores at the state is so very poor. It is revalidated again within 2 to 3 years. It is called war, the same thing. It is called limited, they give you an additional year where you believe that are making progress. If you go to status of now, which is good, then they can create a leverage of even a normal valuation on its after years. In 4th year, or in the 3rd year. But if you get very good and this is where you have 4 years, not less than 4, not less than 5, before another valuation. Although, if you think and have really for its requirements, they can then do a big time evaluation around this financial that the correct measures that is agreed of media. Now, if you look at the old one, this sounds 4 2023, the last time we validated, and you can change all the difference between this one is that there are two levels of scoring in the old one. Now it has been harmonizing to one unified score. Previously, they would score this different, and then they have what's called overall conference score. And that is the one we use high, moderate, low, very low. As against black events, and all I think the conference, and then come from the store. Now, this is the night and just very you are very however it is. If you look at the figures slide, which is what I want to personally so this is the Nigeria now, okay? This yes, about it. I will start with the city, go to the next slide, this here. Next slide. I don't want to waste time because many of this are the same. But a lot of people still talking about this. You have to prepare, get your family, 2 weeks, send evidence ahead of time for it to review. Then the second stage, we talk about feedback. Feedback is send reviews. And of course, I'm sure this last will share so that people can see so I will not waste time on it. Next slide. Now, this is where I want the conversation to begin. Okay. So, stakeholder engagement was where we saw a 2.5 or 100. People like that needed to that station. And you know, at 7 years ago, when I was 1.4, it was actually going. That's the issue to speak that is very low. That speaks therefore that if you look at very low, which is 69, if they had used the speed they had used that model now, and if you don't do anything before validation, I will end up like this. Again, I will do correctly national will suggest. Set the time frame for us after we think what is done, you already suspended, and they will have it back again within 2 years. That means that 2 years they will be coming back. Yeah. I deliberately get quiet so that it was so interesting. I believe they don't know. I think what happened at night and learning, I guess, it's like this. But I don't know things. So you begin to begin. We are robust, we are honest, we are constructive, but we're also reasonable and responsible as a sector. It's very, very important. Okay. Because sometimes some of these things are sway, like those one or two individuals, so here that some people think every other person. You know, there's a tendency to think that the best side is making love like sides. According to myself, also, ourselves, especially for outside, well, everything remain very, we have social feel quite big, all those senses. So when somebody get information that actually bias, there's the job I saying, let me please. Or, this what was the second job. Let's engage and speaking that point, but there are something to go on. We are not going to be, well, I'm not so I was given very cheap of super. That's not what we say. Well, it's a responsible way for activity on advocacy and engagement, where the truth and objectivity as much as possible is highlighted beyond some other things that will not be connected to the past. We are accept, we are stakeholders, and the conversation will be about this. Let's get a consensus on what is agreeing and let's be principle and purpose. When the social incentive is out of this, something will be wrong. And we need to numbers. I thought the picture was that's next slide. This is on transparency. So you can see as we assess them, our score was hundreds and that second. By this time, we was started moving and you are not funding. But it's 1.4 to 1 million. Stop. And this one behind those facilities to other things. And that's the red flag. And people are also scared. And I hope you focus on that. All right. So Nigeria will do Nigeria 2026 alongside and the Dominican Republic. So those are the three countries that will do by the time you election. For next, those are the countries that will do. This is the back page of our assessment report for 2023. So that's the date, June. So that will be this where I got our score from the game and the this slide which I illustrated where we were, where we stood, and well cannot afford to remain there as we go towards the next validation. All right. So what also one of the parents in the tradition was in the next validation was out for instance keyword that don't like mobile. So the first already keyword they sent to strengthen that. That's why they have the recommendation and corrective action. But they never action. The second organ that has already keyword, there's no basis for that. One is self as that's major advancements. And I'm not sure that we should still now because as we still going to work with some of the things I listed from the validation report of last, I think we have those are the very stress as to why this falls we are less by the very false with those parameters. All right. So as we go towards 2026, we should be focusing on the things for fractions and we're determining the significant valuation. And I'm telling you that tomorrow, and like I will be really talking about the framework for addressing the gaps in the validation reports. I think I've seen something like that at some point in the agenda. What are these implications of sliding? We need to begin to find out how we go back and in the question that where are we going back? What do we need to do to ensure that we address? So when you say that, for instance, every community should need resources is an agenda, as anything else to ensure that agenda affects the community. And if nobody is I'm not sure that the case of agenda, I see certain committee, but you should know say that agenda that's anyone with and all else can happens. And dealing with every frequent meeting, you get the sectors to the very point I have that look at that. I get the impact so much. You saw the thing and then you really start to if you don't get first before you see how you have relationship with. So it is a what agenda that society wants. You can get on the main agenda not fully because so we already have something set for us. I will be discussing as family on the individual when we start to some of those things. So that makes sports, dancing, and it is so one example of examples that's so widespread as it does stolen because the city states in the sector, the city states and the whole. And it depends on where you get the information. When you get from Brazil, I don't want to get from this. Some to get from Syria. Because if you if they are other agenda, sorry, the guy from Los Angeles, where he went. All right. Let's see. Let's see. We spoke about digital and God it's those strategies, let's connect and let Stephen Gas, Columbus, let's give that simulation. It is serious, something about regular laws, set up the whole government about people. And that is not just a lot of us. We can, there's things that are encouraged. We want to see that people are speaking and bring you those extra hours. It's encouraged. It's not a gift. When you take the pain to go above it, somebody is doing you have to punch for and then decide to those three numbers. Failure to demonstrate progress from the worst of the requirements, in validation, in results in temporary suspension. So we should not outside of any or make sure that make progress on the one that you identify previously. So these are the posers that are really the representation of those. All these I have are listed on my vision for 2023. When NWG is said, like an institutional as likely, you don't need to accept that one, because I'm very constitution of the NWG. As then when it came to there was staff sliding on seconds. And so the federal house was sliding. That's the family that killed. The reconstruction of the fifth B21 did not follow open, fair, and transparent mechanism of both industry and civil society. So when Gilbert was saying all of the sectors used to document the process of the nomination of six and one news, the evidence and was open, transparent out there. This is what was still about the safety of bananas. So I asked people what has changed because it's not deep and it's going on with so I'm going to tell you that I think it changes. It has changed. What the evidence documentation has changed. That is what we sent in that place when there is. These are together. There was a lack of open, fair, and transparent nomination procedure for either as a repetition. Then they say there's a need to incorporate MSG protection through revisions of 27 acts as a condition for impactful EICI. That was this from the last initial bills. Was the progress, a lot of people around amendments as we're having on that. And it's time control. Well, they're already having over. Yeah, no. So you want to get wrong. So this is what it should be. I am sorry the next people that should be and they are not. That will not be civil society and things are no longer can go on. Well, you have played your part and the strength that can be done. Because they're talking about the house, which is how we control people. Next slide, please. Patience was just administration. And if you know how much of freeway sickness and usually is fine. The wish to use inside conspiracy as far as weakening society a different creative process. As there were a lot of reasons to begin as there were elements this achieved. Most media was not emotional, email, letter, statement. Including the problems to be able to say that there's an issue around that. And that's weakening participation. I want us to note that our ability to read the process in constitution. We start all manage on the hard points and forget going past. Preparation can take place, the evaluation can take place so much as we act and study to that state. So effective participation, which is what we need, because this is I think it's changed. Person for us to as we usually chat very language one when the beach he said, oh yeah, video. Children said it was in the hands. Skateboard, he said, wow, that's for that. Nothing waits. Even if that people saw, they will put you, they will do the repair, they will come back and say, Dr. Absolutely, and it has no thing. Bring it back, you know. The excess vacuum, you know that information, they will accept it, and not be tested. Dr. has this simple, you know what I said, when you take that for, and I share, but if you look at the reports before the call, so when they ask you questions, they want to see what clarify where you look at. So, the remarks for the question to come up, and then we change. You have to. The vision of the Huffington of the Human Society, sports and the sport was implementing the tradition together. English again on the arts, again on the arts. How much for this we have? How do you call it? Where are the star? And government Australia that will not help will be help. And you will machine. Very important. So I asked the people so by me, they say which is trying to ask, I said by me. Since the exam strengthening to secretariat, sexual laws, followed with strengthening us. So that was my response to that. Better than I know university and get results than process response. I also think, and then actually, I'm pressure on the client. So that's why I would want to show in nasty is so as since that the engagement is start to set. Before they go back to their own the past years, 1990, you guys are no bad for now still it's all of them together. That's very sadness. Explanations. I don't think it's initially fucking called. Like that makes sense. So, always want to share with you. This when we should have this is because it is to happen. The framework explained that when you want to play games, I know it's something to do that. You want that and it's not, that's not it's not really for games. But you still have to software game and you have to. How do you use it in this time in infrastructure or around the student? Maybe it's not going on. It's because when it's not things, or because things are not someone will almost have it secondary engage. It's all that's personal. What is the situation? Some of it, you know, it's very important. And I talk about the long plan. Sometimes very important long plan. Yes. Remember the long plan, and then it's simple that's it's a good influence. I responded to the lost military so that after they shake the long plan, to this 70% that inputs were made. Moving development is against that. And you are going to be very satisfied in terms of society and industry participate in the development of the world map, the next world map, or our economic business as usual. The same, the way of us opportunity, or we think now millions, they're like us. We need to have this position. So nice. We need to do another one person. Next slide. There's us, for secretariat. The second was running ignorant models which provide the interpretation and calling to question their credibility in their mandate. What has changed? And what is government then get to show that things have changed. I'm reading this from the results of 2023 and then words. And then the based on this consultation, Commission will say there are grounds to suggest potential breaches of the code against finding a stay and exchange, and we will have evidence to show that. All right, next slide. Proposals for licensing. Here was, like you said, expectation very high. And we see a scope for it to report to the previous party or providing diagnostic of licensing is in. The video started 2023, that had 2 years. And again, licensing of getting paid that will get to engage. Where are we on that? What has changed? What is the orientation? Which should be some change. I'm rounding us next slide. So my conclusion is that we have demonstrated resilience in this process. We have not anything that can reach that already that this. Okay. The risk for the most one for the last one is known, all of us know it. And we are serious with the regulation that president. The methodology of self-operation is clear to us. Everybody knows it's basically the same. And The difference in this model is not that drastic, so it's not something we can measure, but I'm glad that some of us are asking questions. But basically, but from the attention, both as a sector and as a niche in this process. In addition to making collective measures, seeing the last validation was a short proper and adequate documentation as progress. That's documentation cannot do and that is. Once we do them when they should go, you can't have. And that is what validators from this evidence and documents. You can't set the name and ability to do if it was not set or not set. And all of those are doing things, not only sharing reports, to page are promoting, to show what we are doing in dissemination. There are this first time in that basis. But if you shall explain the fiscal, you know, that's the thing I mean. Let's put more less things to the second take this issue is okay. I'm going to go so the quantum of evidence needed to show that this is essentially because actually more people than information. So when someone says this problem, and you can imagine there is no problem with your documentation because a lot against theirs. So when you go with what they are, but when evidence there is overwhelming, difficult to is the way. The manipulation is a function of taking the right actions, but was most importantly documenting them and presenting them and making them as in complete as all about evidence and evidence. That's like thank you for your attention. Thank you. So, das hast du weißt du, das schon von diesem Jahr hast du wieder noch zwei Gesundheits because Sarah is soon our face Sarah. Thank you very much. There's that. There are times that all things are going on, but you got to know what that's going on. You also mentioned in circumstances where one or two people firing emails, press releases, that's some of them have books, some not actually that false, and some are the truth, you know. But the next take the half things, the ones that are not the truth, and one which is released. Most young persons is only. I also like to speak questions. There was a question on the first question. I said, like, what's enemies? Because there is media, and secondly, what's media, and the ticket is shot based on that. It's just functioning what we able to do. So once again, thank you, Mr. Scholar. And if you also look at his presentation, you might see that for us successful and media, we have more than or 7 items that we can work on as individuals, as groups, that we can work on. You know, we take this, are we doing this? We take this up, are we doing that? So it's been a wonderful experience. I'm going to talk now for interaction before the last presentation that will come which that will be actually adding forward this. If you have questions, I think we should have questions and clarifications before speaking now. We make it as quickly as possible, as timely as possible, so that we can live here in good. So, oh, Next, the presentation of new rights, so many points, areas of structure in the institution. But I was trying at the strategies we think women will be applied to this. Initial such because I have wondered if this bringing up something so that is very much we said the recent engagement even when we make what is only make this times you don't have specifically Islamic. So I think but what I'm looking at is that in going forward, we must keep on the struggle that will help us navigate. And again, that's why I have said a lot of fingers are pointing at civil service is engagement. And so, now, what are the demonstrations? What about combination? Do we really have that magic one? And how do we begin to think along the line for the rich? Then again, I don't know if I'm getting it like that. But I look at the society, the civil society, and maybe media engagement. The civil society engagement, can we now point to like, do we have a strong from where we can say, because civil society, like the branches of this world, they point to looking at civil society, looking at the content. So no matter what you want to do, that content is here. So do we now have a maybe so that this may be your delicate body of civil society that will engage. Because what it means is that if you're 20 of them, you can see another 5 of them that may say we are not being engaged. Don't worry, it makes sense. So do we have mechanism for your identity? You can say that if you have this number in the room, you can now fully, you can put your faith and civil society organization in the world. This is what I mean. The secondly, the media aspect is another challenge on the media. Today, many politicians control media. And I think it's a reality. So how do we now, make a difference on that challenge of media engagement? I don't want to continue by saying talking about somebody, because it's like a colleague of Ghana was talking about how we can deal with the toxicity of civil society. Thank you. Thank you. So taking them as the goal or you want the distance. Let me think about the goal. What's that? Not that everyone is then and says the mother and the sister system that can help. Well, first, we have the fundamental of civil society. You decide that you said. And therefore, homogenizing is strange. If I try to do that, then they wonder whether the man people to engage. And that's I use the word responsible, reasonable, no factor. And then there's this. You shut around us. Now I say that. You look at it in the context, when you guys were able to reach consensus, even though you have sense. But never you are. But really, there's an argument to sense. But that will not be defended this way as generality and the consensus of the law. So there's no structure. And there's no very clear structure. There's the diverse, the two different things, but there's common goal because it's so if all one wants is consensus accountability, the Islamic sector, and there is the ministry budgetary percent, the delivery people to give. No matter what kind of payment you have, Can I agree that or not? And what it is, I reach consensus. So I'm not going to be advocating for what triggers the religious speech. And I can listen to the moon as self and an army as something. Plus, plus, or one vice. And I believe on how God has spiritual achievements. Like I just said, when you are in lot of God, and then you spend how much a life of relations, consciousness, time, commissioner, system, and never enough for a creativity. I don't see this, or my said, so I want to and then it starts to learn again at that place. That's really that place. In terms of your questions. I don't know it's you get boiled down to but when it's fun, what do you do? What are the things certain happens is because stop resourcing for this. And most of the time, that I don't analyze questions. And I realize, oh, I actually work with or that or looking for sponsorship for your coordination. Whereas graphic function A, that's supposed to be a network of all. Okay, but now the one thing, you know, that is something that has two, where you put one class or coordination. Where you know what actually that's what I mean, is also you bring it back, what to be, we're going to the economy as a like children, they are not in stories. The other one said, I can see a point that I gave in the bottom store. Let's find now we go to the of the science. What the one oh yeah. And I was doing I reading the one there's something very last of our means. Now the parents know what was thank you. Look out everything. I think this is about the only thing I was bringing that I just saw that you know parents with validation. You know the character that goes so they believe that they have them you know I think killers or mental result or maybe they are things that policy and that's kind of problem now. Could you think this environment you know why one parents carries the law then to because from the kind of support, the feel like I think definitely it was feel the popular on the process. And we certainly know that there no way there will be one less or really talk you so that everybody will agree on a call. So everybody agree on a call. Then that's not before the world was printed on or agree. So the thing, trying to traveling is inspiring. Sitting with right leaders and don't right leaders, every part of the and all blocks. That's what. Thank you very much. Then on product six, the most, the most mentioned right? Okay, it's about especially how we build our cities, and that for me is very worse because we have a lot of national conference issues that seriously addressed, especially in the Southern Europe. We have a lot of issues around learning cases. How do we report this? Because once it's being reported, okay, in a presentation we had just last week in just Dr. Pastor was doing a presentation and he showed people how to say 11 images in the and that was reported on the late. But we not demonstrate that that's happening in the blood. So how do we ensure that this
data that we're trying to check our losses. Then it took be transparent and open. For me, that's the major issue. And then difficulties in identifying benefits when it comes to this is a big headache. And how do we translate from just having these disclosures to impacts? Yes, we want to improve, not, but is it really translating into impact? How do we not just we just want to make so really that's the me use of the make sure so that we can discuss it and see how we can proceed.
Thank you very much again. I do have answers, and I'll try to attend. The 90 audit process had its process, and they have their ways of generating their data. And you can talk about, okay, at the point they tell you that what's that you're covering, for instance, do not fall into material selection. So the versus you have data that anything was this. I think what can influence the society when we have such information, again, you don't have to is I remember I was this in Sicily, we used to do shadow reports. And what is the report basically does is shadow what has been released. Or that file is something. If you have no password to ensure that it's fun, and then you also need to see that and why that's topic. And then you do again, the relevant gets push you, take note of that information. Is it the NSU? Is it the MIT? You can also engage because sometimes there's debate about informal, religion, small scale mining, and key mining. It's not all small scale miners that are here. Okay, and of course, the bigger ones stand with job because very important skills, so and sometimes you know that probably nice. Very sick cannot be there to catch first. When you have almost that would. Relation of that, relation is evident by that can be act. For example, more than 20 of the center engage so that people that understand this in that sense, one organization to show against the respect that government agencies today. When you do that, you can drastically this time. And I always tell my colleagues in society, don't manage your own expectations. You have your needs. Watch the needs space that you have. Can't remember why everyone was. Um, Beneficial ownership. One of the debates we had when we were working in beneficial ownership is at one point we are planning the beneficial. That's just the day you sit on the one behind. Well, this is what you have. All this was clear. And then come into the next staff, move on. And it's like that a short video now where and then impacts fish. Again, that's what people are saying that one of the way you can channeling dogs. Because it requires creativity, requires collective efforts. Foundation for you want to run that together as gender. That's serious. Themselves will get themselves as strong more focus on the same society. I will not rally around this. So that is for it. And just that will be my response for the years. Thank you. I just want to say thank you for this session. It's something in their passions once taken by stage. You walk around something still security of those points that is trying to fast this and finally they are here not concerned to listen. This is no, I was planning this is the research and activities. After people go around there, they saw it magical. I think, yes, it's good for us to have here. But how many of us people that do? It's
This ambitious ambition for you is not food. This is the lessons that when we are just those who are the CEOs who have actually built how to be there, how much knowledge of the native process they have. I want to put me with a Spanish channel person. If I say that maybe just 14, 15, let me see, so now come on. Same as that was the nice in all the states. That's the last see even those recruited the new parties have forgotten what they learned. So I am just advocating that we get hold of the CSOs and the CBUs who are working at subnational levels. Let us educate so that even if they don't have something, they can mainstream this transparency and transparency ideas into their existing programs so that we can come out the best for it. Because it is not enough for us to talk to us. Reflect such because that's where the impact, real impact relations. Thank you. Thank you for what I certainly thank you. Yeah. Yeah, people who operate this cannot really compare. There are those very communities. We provide for this or this that all to know what is the conscience of public prison in their sector so that they can certainly not to engage. One of this question is like prince over one
Ondo, we're everywhere.
where I want to that we go and see how you perfect on what we got. Well, and going back to states. What organized for what organized, say back to get a country to work with businesses. And what so? I mean, take up very important numbers. So they have ideas and they're going to go into fair so that they can continue. Yeah. It's and all sessions. And then come up with ideas, it's why we should be that person and talk about the creation because they have information out there. It's you to be good, it's something that I don't understand to or we need to agree. Let's resonate in what happened them that I see an interest in what we can face and then it's not but again, resources. I showed that after all one I don't have because make them tell us the budget and you go back to that bonus. And that reach out goes. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you for the effort. Okay. And you see that you should know
That's the last
That's the last for this session.
All right. So she's contributing. She's not.
I'm contributing. I'm making a contribution. This microphone is calling my name.
Take this one.
Yes. Very much. It's very interesting. But I want us to go back to the reason why we didn't do well. Those areas 1.1 to 1.3 stakeholder engagement. What should we do differently? But this other question about what is that we're going to be doing, we always answer that amongst ourselves. But as a country, Nigeria, we're going to validation in less than 6 months from now. In fact, the process are come. This conversation will have there started that process. What must we do to ensure that we don't make the mistakes we made the last time? So about stakeholder engagement, the question I want to ask, the secretary will be able to answer, and then the representatives of the board can hear the able to answer. First and foremost, you have representatives on the board, even though we feel at society level that we don't have enough representation. But that was the whole idea why the society steering committee came. So that we can have an engine that will be having that conversation. So the first question is this. As a member of the board, I was on the board, Paula was on the board, Peter was on something. Even at the international level.
Internet. But
Content is coming up in March next year. Already there's a date, there's a venue. There's already an agenda. Constituencies consulting their constituencies on whether we support the board members to go. Because when you come to the board thing, you are automatically an observer, you don't speak. It is only your representative that says. So, what is the process that we have? Because when we're the board, invitations are sent to the board members. Board members control the civic science steering committee and some other leaders of civic science say there's a meeting, whether by mail or whatever, this is the agenda, what should we be talking about? This is what, especially the area that concerns civic science. If we have that correspondence between the representative, because from what I'm saying, it is company and civic science that we should look at now. If there's a correspondence between the company's representative on the board and their constituency, to say that once there's a body to have confrontation, we have evidence. That is a very concrete evidence to show that the engagement between board member and their constituency. And the whole idea that the company forum was put in place in the company and civil service committee, there was no company forum. And they needed the company forum to run. And so oil and gas and mining and hotel. So the question is, do we have that kind of communication from representatives on the board to their constituents to say there's got to be a public thing, so there is the agenda, what are we doing? That's why. Number two, we have what we call the country work plan. A lot of people misunderstand it to say it is native work. It is not native work plan. Because when they are accepting the country on validation, they're not going to accept that this document was done by mates. They will look at the correspondence from those things of the different constituencies, what were your includes. And please, let's not get it wrong. The fact that your activity was started in the Nigerian work plan does not make it the secretary that will fund this. So some of us, we do our work plan every year. We have components that address issues of aesthetic, especially related to the use of native data. Then you don't send it to the secretariat so that you can add it to the country work plan. The mistake that comes from there is clarifying of expectation, like Kala said, is that sometimes you feel because you have given that activity to put on the work plan, you must fund this. No. You can fund it in your organization, see the report. So we are doing the country reports. I think the sector and the idea. The dog, API. But it's like, second line, not home. Moving on the other side. You as an organization, normally your report to legislate, so you have done, you share once thing. Because that's people. People are not included, so that's why the referral to need to serve them and go. It's such a our report to be never clear. You know the process of was our second representative or the country representative. That argument was nothing before it was moved on.
Oh, no, I'm not before you.
It's quite engaged. That you have said, for instance, the report of the external committee to be evident of one of the engagement for whose type engagement. Who are the members of the food secretary committee? I have complaints if I can't get to committee of the selling committee. What is the sense of preference for those committees? If you have that evidence, it will help our validation. Hello? Correct. The issue of matter again is this. Each time we put one press statement or we put one negative thing, remember that they have this, we all have double alerts. They put slate as one of their double alerts. They put Nigeria extractive sector as one of their double alerts.
Okay.
This is we don't keep, they don't share. They only share the bad news. And you know, it's that bad news that will inform the side of members of that validation. I used to be a member of validation committee and implementation committee, so I know it. If you are going to discuss Nigeria, everybody is interested about Nigeria. And when you are discussing about Nigeria, it's about $20 million that was not related by anything to CPN. That will be counted as one. So you have board members. I mean, senior board members, they sit down and they say, how do you explain Nigeria is doing well when you know say $20 million is missing in the entire thing? You know, so the credit of which I asked the question that I asked. And we don't know that for Nigeria is here, which is here. Because of that, we so really fully understand that. Doing that, the secretary he left our representative, you know, what is process for the work plan, the national work plan in there. It is one way that we can show participation. Number two, not publish up to pay natural results. Which one is that one that's said by Secretary? Natural resource governance. We have women in the traffic, line in mind, which the culture of our report and sending to me. So that because of sector engagement, that's the same way companies. Because if companies agree that doesn't mean that. Moreover, if civil sector engagement that is more important. Because we feel that it's the same role that design company and governments. So if they are not so much doing that, but food sector is doing that, we really intend to do that. So the two things going forward, Jan and July, and the board will have like meetings. If we're not in doing that, we should have a way of getting, once the notice for board meeting is sent to board members, send that same notice to the civil secretary committee. Civil secretary committee member will reach their different constituency, and then the information will come. The year is ending, and we start as a constituency to take our 3 priorities for the next coming year. If we have those 3 priorities for the next coming year, that will also add to civil society engagement. But nothing we should talk about the challenges that they have. Because the more you talk about the challenges, the more you find way to strengthen them. And then lastly, we need to prioritize the review of the acts. So that you can have adequate representation on the board for each side. Now you know that this committee is more like an ad hoc arrangement, it's not part of the structure. But you can use that outlets to be able to get kind of reports and evidence that they need for the year. I think that the strategy that Mr. Angon was talking about. If you say collective field, yes. Let's all look at these names that are example of time because they are evaluating us. They are evaluating them because they are part of the process. The struggle and advice that made the civil society protocol to become part that should not be swept under the carpet. We need to strengthen it. And Nigeria is one of the very strong voices when it comes to EITI implementation. If we're able to do these things, this next three months, I'm telling you that we'll be able to restore higher. The other struggles we have, let us find things on. I know that it's essential that is out there, but we will not forget that we have not a reason. But we must always seek to find solutions to fix those governments. Thank you very much for having us on this day. And uh, perhaps, except I want you want to have one or two things. The next section is session, and that's having a framework for address. Yes, students, GS, acquisition of the so they there's going to be I do not know for that. Listen away. I will hand over the microphone now. Mrs. Adeline Anwar. Take the last presentation. Initial level will come for this. We do a run and overview of the EITI process. And I'm sure it's fractional. No more participants the whole made loss. But I'm not going to do that to shorten my talk today. So I'm going to talk on this framework, and then if I have time, I will use like 10 minutes to run through what the EITI is, so we can move into speech, straight on upstate or use and what you do. And so because if I talk about who we are, that's another thing using the line and lower. So I want to very briefly. And what we're just trying to do with them is not to the complexity or the big words on that whole developing a framework. What's it? It's about what's the framework? Still good. What's the framework? And that's the issue. It's going to be around as different. Okay. Look, I'm not going to develop that anymore. I'm not going to provide a guide. What we're supposed to do, and then we will break, we will into like another one in the hall in our respective group and flesh out whatever is still the character that we're talking about. That way, it will see. I realize that the time comes to him, and we during presentations, we go away, come back the next time, and people are looking at it like they are just like him. So we try to have a mixture of both old and new in the hall. But again, I don't see our military, our ancestors and the grandparents making the kind of contribution that we wanted. I want to skeleton color and shape, but we want to see more independent voices, join this conversation as it ought. So for starters, what's the framework? Because you don't understand what that framework is, even if I talk from here to tomorrow, people will still asking themselves, right? So what is framework? We should go on with the reflections. So what should I bring you back? What the framework? Before the back, yeah. Where's the microphone? Yeah.
Oh, you're serious about the sound was up.
Somebody should have again the number one of the grandfather before. Alright, so framework is more than I thought very custom more that these things which have their own species for this. Fantastic. So we're actually not moving now. That vision you can see there. Framework, recognizing Nigeria validation. Zabato unpacking Nigeria's validation process. What was supposed to be doing for the changing application. Under what I did was to actually categorize them under template or the component that the EITI is looking at. So, and then what I was supposed to be doing on that issue, then we both degree and all of us I think we are not to make it bigger. And I want to motivate. I want to try. You know, after you switch, they will always ask that the prayer to be very on the vision. Nobody has ever done that. You say, down, and you so there. So I'll just run through that. If I don't
We'll do it everything.
that, they will not you will not flesh to walk and away like so basically I'm trying to say what I'm going to do. You put that at first, right? To the light that we had right and it's right from the beginning. There is the fault of that keep light. So that's what I'm just trying to do to show my own what I different. What we should why different journey by which even five and simplify the elevation. Just that happens the life point need to guide and direct plan of action by looking at the start was supposed to be doing the research and then ensure that we are confident in the first preparation for validation and the third validation for collaboration of the three aspects of Nigeria. I'm so happy with what quality session. So if you just application next year. So what about validation? About our own internal body. Which how do we sustain electoral self-governance? How do we sustain corporate governance in our system? So we're going to be looking at things like how do we do that the AI model into our governance and then expand this organization. So that's what we are speaking about. And then of course, in a way, that will
Give us.
question support innovation and design intelligence for any approach to keeping the implementation of the system. Please. Let me follow. So we are looking at three things. First, we're going to be looking at six framework under three. One, under stakeholder engagement, which fully what the EIN is talking about. There is a simply under that validation guides that builds stakeholder engagements. Then we're going to be looking at semantic disclosure. Even though I put that semantic there, it's beyond that. It's also about all disclosure in terms of the transparency regulation from requirement 2 to requirement 6. All the requirement or standard. That was already.
Yeah, I'm not saying.
And tomorrow, it's not that there. We're going to be looking at all of that second update of what's done so far and then what's there. For what of all, we need to this works in. And then the final regulatory framework or regulatory report, which look at the outcome and the impact. So far, we've been developing that for about 20 years. So what? No, where is the soul? What's the impact? What's the sustainable measure that we see or transference of what push from the EIK to our own governance? Next slide. So I'm going to do all of that switch. Next slide. So I told us we're going to be looking at the governance model. We're going to be looking at the regulatory, that stakeholders governance model, the regulatory and the regulatory more. So under this, we are looking at scholar mentioned that but there is still something that is missing. Remember we're looking at some of the gaps. So I'm mixing, giving out the kind of what to. There is that component of looking at working conditions. We are thinking of police analysis. What we only do the analysis on the constitution of the boards. And sorry, commitments and authorities. We're looking at gender, we are looking at youth, we are looking at vulnerable people. We have anybody on the data element and vulnerable. So we're talking about sustaining the process. what I'm supposed to do, what they're going to be putting down there. Some of them will not happen in the next 3 months. Some of them will not happen in the next 7 months. Some of them are things that will be taken and up to. I'm preparing proposals that will send it to government. Thank God that will have the NTF and the chair of the Eiti board. So these are things that as the board meeting they finish can carry and use that. These are some of the things that we're talking about. And then we're looking at how we can use to begin our own processes and the country. So when they are considering board or for instance NUBC, you don't consider gender, you don't consider youth representation. On the native board that is moving. We're talking about women. On the native board that has don't have to do with disability. So how do you expand and ultimate career change? And of course, that idea of the commitment and the training for enforcement, for passion, impact, and if we thought, what should we do? We'll be saying that in the moment. Then enhance the effort engagement. For confidential career representation. Tomorrow, have supply green lights. Yes, and then some people will say, oh, on the latest NSWG, you don't have no two-sided presentation. Change that we can do. And then some United States of the Human Symbol. By the people of the industry. And things without develop this in different symbol. We will give that for 1 year. Because each time we come to meetings, we will say ratified, validated, ratified, this effect correction and relief or whatever. We've never had final one. We can't even print and close because they'll keep telling you that no. So how it is because I will pitch their tax that will be flow up and we move toward validation later. And people had to but whenever we say validation thing like he said 3 months, right? And that means different years already. That's like strength and body to settle that way. Moving to the start of human, it's right there in the already action. That our ability are not beyond Abuja and Lagos. So they want to see us as a drafting. Why? Because that is where they want to see natural resource benefited. I was privileged to be at Spain in Spain in October. And for the OTP party. And they took the conference to one district of Province, I don't know what I'll call it, in Spain. 5.5 hours bus ride from Madrid. And why did they take it there? Because the city itself said, this great conference to our meeting, but we want to engage what OTP has done for us. From the food, she drinks, everything at that conference was from that. Something wasn't more revealing for me. We had a presentation from Nigeria, even at the global government level, before the solution. So if you want to actually look at some of it, what model they use that they have fun software, you have OTP, I think they state government was there. You can see the award of citation on behalf of the Nigerian government. We used to win awards. We used to trailblazer. The law was like taking the armchair and then relax. Innovation, coming up with them, but we're not trying to sustain those innovations. So what should we do? These are posters and collaborative say that I'm hearing. Of course, I mentioned that includes advocating and participation. So that you need to think of broadly. And if I said something, when you had, you can judge others by one bottle, and you get judged by 100 multiple each. So we constantly reinvent thought. So parenting people apply that. What didn't come from the extracting fair and controlled communication that expansion academic account to have minor today on the world. But beyond having them present and flow data, what comes up where the school beyond beyond what presenting companies of the day before, what other value, what other um, relationship you companies, you have the knowledge, you have the resources. So if you think about how can immeasurable value. So the definition trying to Eiti implementation and complete the process in Nigeria. And of course, that's the music that I just talked about side. So I talked about this and I'm going to tell us, give us an idea. So those who say, oh, the main board is cute. You don't have only one society representative there. This is an analysis. Not about strict self membership. Of course, I know we want to contest this one member for the geopolitical, but so now we can also begin to look at the board level to take this form to the agent and then forceful criteria that behind this geopolitical presentation, it becomes and put in place also a mechanism for their litigation, selection, wherever, so that as some members of the representative of the people that of the man, but again, then the concept of the emergency should be independent and transparent. So if you discuss government how to do for it comes from the grassroots. And if you come from the grassroots, you want to think of how what mechanism can do like that. So this way, what we're going to see how correction the Nigerian country involves that talks about having very centers of society and company, leaders, governments, that the registry of society, companies and government which do not by. So we have clearly the what you represented. We have two sides represented. We used to have representative of the media, editor of Silicon, Mahmoud. Mahmoud, no one says it graphic. Mahmoud, yeah, right. For my blog, yeah. But in a timeline in prison, the number of sightings and obtaining on people. Let's see. Now, the transparency and disclosure framework, we will have the director energy and mind take us to the storytelling of people of it on how I inform the framework. But what's the meaning? And find out from the board. And then implement recommendation so we can improve overall sector governance in terms of extractive leadership in Nigeria. And then of course systematic data situation where they want a process or a time in Nigeria where if I want information on NNPC, for instance, or data on extractive, NNPC will literally disclose that on their website. So they don't want to publish all those very global and very important report. So just like in 2015, and it's just very full. Go to any website, go to any website. So get government agencies and even companies to voluntary disclose information that compares to the environmental, social, and gender data, and of course, assessment. All of are under transparency template. This are things that are looking at our question both get to that level. So definitely our country. And then of course, go and even reach. We must read it's about a 7 page each of this component. But I you actually assign yourselves really from the candidate in my room, they know my team. I'll say, okay, you guys, it is 1 to 20, do a review, analyze it and come back. So and come. And then by the time this down, you have about 200 pages gone. And then once I can have what content in the report. So one further information, go to the report and do. So we're going to be doing that exercise of what we're doing. And then of course the relationship for the sharing leaders from this, where you see anything and sharing leaders from this, and in full disclosure, contract and friend that area that will have the shift. Yes. And we have this. And it's like I told them in the origin, whether I read the monthly. I think my saying, if contract are not made, fall, and then you don't know what is contained in the contract, how can all this happen? It also affect the quality of the CV that you sign and all of that. So they are all in the room and these are the out. Also, the question reports data and then also another thing saying affects not because what we're anything, paper accessibility, usability, and then ability to use that to stimulate public praise, conversation, and bring about effective change. We should do that. So, different preventive all of that. We still have a link here. From there. And ensure that and next time. Then finally, the third framework that we'll be looking at is the monitoring review and legal framework. And here we take finally develop plans, including corrective action, taking of activity on operation, and provide whether we want to do this time around shouldn't be quarterly updates, but the same quarterly updates, but this will come upon it I can see. So then we say monthly update, January, February, and then by March, we should have the update and pre-meeting. If you don't have money to convene, you can have online meetings, right? Those are considerations that you should in your group. Then you have the M&E framework in the 2026 Nigeria Country Work Plan embedded so it can help us track progress. That would be the validation to that. We should be able to have some of the components in the work plan as it is, which they will be doing tomorrow, and then it's another meeting on Friday on the work plan, so that so easily, have a plan. The seamless plan that will help us know exactly how far we're going, what we're doing, and then take this beyond just things from programming. And then with so much about having you want to see that so I promise long time. We no longer anything to for me. But let me try inside how result. What do you want to see is some of the things that we're looking at. But then we're particularly at profit combines and sanctions. And of course, we're talking about this tomorrow. And I will have to do there. The legal way you guys talk about the for the that will give us extra marks. So we are looking at before you go to Alpha and what do you need? Then they give you 1 mark, 1.5 mark. Now then multiply to the EITI second priority. Those are those priorities that can start thinking of what we can do in the backline. Next slide. Rounded up. Next slide. So next, just I'm giving you all of them. Stop. Come, yeah, stop. So I tried to put this up to once again remind you of our rules. I finished my work on the framework. To give us an idea before we go into our group work. And I want to just very, very read through again on what our rules are clear implementation in Nigeria, especially even relation around the corner. We have the responsibility of right regulation in terms of implementing the recommendation in the reports.
What is
Scholar academics. What season and things that very important when we need. Government spends not needs, government spends money. Independent administrators are hired. They spend their time. They staff are paid salaries. They go do the gathering. We say they do all of that work. In that report, we have recommendation. What have we done with that? How have we implemented it? How has this report, how has this report changed the outlook of Nigerian federal and external sector? You have research and knowledge sharing, agenda setting, sub-national reports. So each time we will talk, and it is not, nobody knows it beyond Africa. You that, how many times have you taken the pain to talk about PITI, reports, to help your advocacy work in mind? All the details are there. So it's a collective responsibility. Then it's the advising. So these are not going fine. You are not happy. Before you write to salary reporters, before you, is the truth, before you go looking for which damage, it's a free word, right? Please, attach it, write to it, put it in writing, and say you are concerned and be specific about what it is. And at the same time, you also advise us on what we should do or what we think we should do to make that very bad process better. I think that way. You know, I advise. You know, I don't feel we don't think that right. Yeah. You can do what you know, because you do is scary. It's like elderly or it's like I require knowledge. It will change your mind. But don't do everything in the back pocket. That's not what we do. When I want to change thing, really. Sometimes the shape, but that the guy that administration needs that has gone beyond advisory and not begin to apply. So far, the great progress will address it. So we're just asking, look at this whole again. What's your power? Your authority that you have to say just like I said. Then you are supposed to set the agenda. We have a newness. It's important for the civil society to articulate what you want to be able to. How do you want to engage with the and like essential board? Come together, look at it, look for what is it to advance the point and give more means and in fact for Nigerian citizens. Next slide. So I'm saying it's not yet. We've never used speech. But I can't I it's very, very evident for to manage emissions. Um, in the PITI report from 2020, we are small deadline that allows refuse the details of project this project that is something about someone said that oh that's social. This actually cover that much. But I'm saying look at the we still have federal government, we still have the state government and the local government, and then the people. Some of us here political experiences, organizing, framework. I've got the impulse, and I'm sure it's many of us. But the social can be different, where issues, human, material, things. So I think this is like, but we can do a lot to change. That one thing is very nice. So then, I thought it's nice. Because I think I will turn on the very one. So yeah, right in Nigeria, should the case the minister to implement or high on to the EITI. Started quite some time back, the late 60s and the early 70s. What is happening in Nigeria is not happening in was on the top course or the paradox of base. We always use that paradigm, demand by the seaside, by the ocean, by the river, was uses its people to wash hands. So that's paradox of base. But it's not just unique to Nigeria. It's something that they have found out that seems to run or seen as most naturally thought government. That their national resources does not contribute to their national development. That their business are not different like who are really, really blessed. So we compare them with those who are not just so much in different institutions. And for economy, at that time, it was our first Venezuela trying oil inside. And it was an oil, but we had that fed oil in development units. That all we see is just there and there and there. I didn't say that in terms of money much. And yet Venezuela is so, abundantly in how oil gas or what. So, I mean, this research, what is the research? The nuance. Why is the picture of me amongst resource rich countries so prevalent? And it's many of them. And they confirmed and said that it's true. Nigeria inclusive that resource rich countries grew in terms of development at a very, very slow rate compared to some countries who do not have. Probably because some of them don't have. When you have only one floor, you take your time to watch. If you are passing through that wire, you are very careful because you care. You don't have another one to do. But you have 10 hours. When you move around like easily. So that's sorry, next slide. And so that's paradox of faith. They found out that natural resources bring a lot of our policy people don't manage this. But the country don't act well. Because there's no need. You don't pay tax, so you don't ask your government what more tax or what they produce. And then the government does not want to do money because they like what you want. So you're really back where it was like something like not five to boost. The regional and community the country that in the Niger Delta and South Africa, we see that it's only Nigeria. This terrible Nigeria is as a result of the paragraph of Eiti. 1.3. Corrupt unaccountable to endeavor kind all over the place. In the one side of it, a lot of them. And please talk. Like I put it back, right? Produce so much. And yet we import find the products. I know in fact that one is one that sometimes I ask myself if we are trying to say in and then politically and find things from products. The price go through shade. Create what it wants. If there is trouble in Saudi Arabia, the price is then if there is trouble in Nigeria, it's trying to go down, depending on the need, find itself. And then one day, push product to finish. Next slide. So because of this story around natural resources, let's share plan A. Oh, it is so because companies are not calculating how much they earn or pay their countries. And so they should make them so they disclose that they are transparent in their transactions in the countries where they are operating, in terms of the bank, and then of course they are accountability. And so this company, all these great companies, now decided to take the leads and then publish signature bonus of $110 million that paid the Angolan government. And the Angolan government paid at the company. Why did they slow like payment? Now our citizens are asking us questions. So companies now say, see, what you know to say to also ask the government should say how much there is from how what people use the result of the people. And sign from someone come. And in the UK government came in, I think we see an opportunity. Let's make both public and government skills. And that was how commercializing the idea started. And then in 2006, in South Africa, the Eiti was formed. Next slide. At the time, there were about 12 countries implementing the Eiti. Today, we have about 7 countries. Actually, 55. Cameroon, Tanzania, and Haiti. And it's a French, so we have 5 countries implementing the Eiti. And it's a coalition. That's why I said the talk about I'm going to know. Oh, it's a coalition of government, civil society, and companies sitting together the way we are in this form. Not one part is stronger. So the idea that government is all powerful, civil society is there at the table to checkmate exercises, reach some measure of accountability, and then back. The same thing with companies can make excess profits and all. Everything about what the people, that's what the idea is all about. The people, the citizens of that resource income. And then with that philosophy, a country's resources belongs to like the Nigeria, belongs to me and you. That's that. So that is the idea. So I said what the natural resources benefits everybody. And it aims to strengthen governance by improving transparency and accountability in the extractive sector. One of the theories of change that are created institution acts, we did that in the last NC, is into transparency in the accountability. Well, it's for the PhD students in the class, in the house. Next slide. So these are the countries implementing the organization. South Africa faced the year, but they're no longer Cameroon still here, but they're no longer implement the Eiti. We have 25 countries implement the Eiti presently. The countries have been suspended. Next slide. Next slide. We're going to be sharing a presentation after the study. You can just read up and then I'm going to stop some details. Next slide. So, but in Nigeria, we started implementing Eiti in 2004. with the formation of the Eiti Secretariat. So we're about 25 years old. And then it was part of the National Economic Empowerment Development Strategy under Passenger, who were appointed by local body one, so we may have hearings. And we told the 4 areas. Yes, good work. He remember she was in coordinating minister of the management and also pleasure. So, problems were for so here, and the center why? Because at that time, we had our oil and gas sector, but even though they 5% of our use. So there's no president about hey, without that conforms in the oil and gas and to what mining. Next slide. So this is not the time that you can look at the okay, well, we look at our website and look at the which relating at our of the objectives. Next slide, you have the function. Next slide. Next slide. Go in so go back. So this is the method. Companies disclose payment. Government discloses receipts. What is received from the companies. And this is there is an independent verification of this payment by an independent administrator or auditor. And then the other side is the objective and it's central to the VICM operation in Nigeria. And the disclosure covers the entire valuation of the established industry. Starting from the time of award of 9 Paula talked about that, those part of project match of the hands in terms of what the right thing to know. With our number one for the time of the English, influence of the review. And so the item, whereas current in all of this area, down to the implementation of government and I think development policy. That's accountability becomes given. Well, we know that story is not true and that corruption will be reduced. We've done so much yet to do not of that business as usual, but a lot more needs to be done. Next slide. So what we have done, we can have this and read it. All this is a on the Eiti website. Next slide. We have the engagement platforms, the identity, the communication and secretary, which also will pay the designer forum, and then the native company forum. Next slide. Then also develop policy advice or which authentic governments when we find areas in the sector that we want government to intervene. We develop policies. We just saw one that was launched on the tax reform. So it's all that from time to time. Next slide. So carry all of this. Next slide. Carry all of this. Next slide. Thank you. That is not a notice. So what we're going to be doing now is this is what we share with the revision in which, and you will see that those 3 framework that talk about the governance, the regulatory, and the legal approval. Yeah, sorry. Only like 3 development. We will give our dog 3 traditions of common and we have some very good question. Talking guys from nearby and scholars for the district. Or what you can say when say you do believe that component 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 views on stakeholder and then component views on transparency. So, yes, like something component. And then this place, you back up more than fine. Your reports was very you can find yourself and try to come out looking from work. Yeah, it's called so you must be got come from being granted to me. And you have from West. I also went from Ghana. That's every time. Uh, so we're going to look at that. What happened to our
It's coming up. Move like
Thanks.
this move.
Yes.
Yes, it's coming up.
So we're going to look at those components. Somebody should have a laptop and going through that and adopted note and then advise what you think Nigeria can do on that. I know we're going to talk about the status of it. We don't want to talk about that status of it today.
The software.
The sort of is on that.
Oh, just speaking. So,
This time there. And we thought that we were by seven. Not true.
Actually, probably said how about that before. No, it's came out with I want to do.
So I can sorry.
I'll come back to you. I'll come back to you.
Remember, this is big numbers and with that what you is to inside see. Yeah, the little
It remain nice. From where? Talking about coming back by midnight. I'll leave my house and come here.
Somebody has.
One, two, three.
One. Pressure. Roxanne, 3. Rachel, 1. My guy, 2.
And the link.
Anama,
I think this
1.
was like there's a link in this presentation. You don't share.
How do you have 1?
Like there's a link to send to the last slide.
What's
It says happening to the last slide.
3. Well, what?
Push it today.
Just as
Is there? Was there no sorry?
Wow. 1, 2, 3. I'm asking about 1. Taking the two. This can only be 1 candle. One. Okay. So just look 1 to 2. No.
And maybe then it will.
All we do is candle. So I have Twitter, I have product, and I have let's see, cutting on. So so other people there, and then I take your name down, then share a lot from this work. This one I have to. That's the real stuff. Because it's not a minute. Can I pay for the rest of us? This two, the 10, the 3, one follow. So the one of the I think that's what it is.
Taking this.
Come together. They'll show you. In fact, nobody